All right. Hello, everybody. James Detroit here, and a Michigan news source, Capcom. It's a product of the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. It's a newspaper. It's the nice thing about newspapers, they're more difficult to censor. So I appreciate this. The front page story is about how governments, officials, and media making people, not the virus, the enemy. And it's quoting a 2008 American Civil Liberties Union released a report critical of plans created by George W. Bush administration for handling a nationwide epidemic. And it's a very long article, and I'm not going to read that to you because I want to get to everything. But it just points out how in 2008, the ACLU was critical of making people, not the virus, the enemy. And that's exactly what mainstream media and Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and all of our democratically run states, all of the elected officials in those states have made the people the enemy, not the virus. And so in this, there's a few other things I wanted to note in this paper, and I wanted to share them with you. And Michigan businesses, nation's hardest hit by the government lockdown. Small businesses closures mandated by government in response to COVID-19 pandemic have hit Michigan harder than any other state, according to a survey done by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Michigan saw 32.04% of its private sector businesses closed by the government-ordered lockdowns. The second highest state was Pennsylvania at 30.43%. South Dakota had the lowest percentage of businesses affected by a lockdown at 5.83%. The U.S. average was 18.74%. Basically, the U.S. average was 18.74%, and we were almost double that. The survey asked businesses about their experiences under the pandemic in 2020. We have been failed, especially by a Republican-led Michigan legislation. It's one thing, our governor seems to be whacked out. The fact that overwhelming bipartisan support for first-time offenders of driving under the influence who do not kill or permanently damage somebody, and they were going to be able to get their record expunged if they go through the steps and everything. She signed it for other reasons, and then she let it just pocket veto. And when you take a look at that vote, it was overwhelmingly supported by both parties in the Michigan legislature. So leading scientists condemn the lockdowns, call for focus protection. 25% of adults 18 to 24 have considered suicide during the pandemic. In this article, and it quotes the Great Barrington Declaration. If you have not looked into the Great Barrington Declaration, please do so. You know, one of the things we talk about is low-informed voters, low-informed citizens. And if you're getting your news from WJRT Channel 12 locally, or MSNBC, or CNN, or Fox News, if you're getting your information from those sources, you are a low-informed voter and citizen. And it's challenging for me, especially we have all of these things. If you're, please look up some of the Epoch Times articles. You might have to go to page 2 or 10 on a search because they are censored and suppressed. But they're actually doing real reporting, much like the Michigan Capital Confidential here. So the State Board of Education president repeats erroneous charter school slam. No, they can't pick and choose from students. The MDOT spokesman, rebel drivers and libertarians are spiking the traffic deaths. People don't want to be told by the government what to do, so they're being reckless. The CDC says make schools last to close and first to reopen, but the teachers union says that's immoral. How dare parents hoard opportunity for their children? Fumes, East Lansing Union Local. What the teachers union, what the National Education, the MEA and the NEA have done, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, is complicit and culpable to child abuse. They are responsible for child abuse. Report in Medical Journal for K through 5 says there is little reason to believe virtual learning is effective. Report finds teachers' unions' preferred COVID response will shorten children's lives. And these articles are short, they're quick, but I can't get to all of them. Just giving you the headlines, and they're kind of depressing. And I don't like that. I don't like stuff that affects me negatively like that. So we don't have a problem, we have a challenge. And that challenge is, how do we save our constitutional republic, and how do we get out of this funk that we have allowed ourselves to be in? I think some things are going to happen here very soon. Average Michigan Corrections Department employee took 28 and a half days off last year with pay. And I'm going to read this because it's so short, but the employees of the Michigan Department of Corrections had the highest use of annual and sick leave among state workers in 2019-2020 fiscal year that ended October 1st. Prison guards and others on the departmental payroll used 11.8 sick leave days and 16.7 annual leave days on average, for a combined 28.5 days off. The figures come from an annual report on state employees released by the Michigan Civil Service Commission. All state employees, by comparison, used an average of 14.8 annual leave days and 9.1 sick days in the fiscal year. Annual leave days include paid vacation days. Governor Gretchen Whitmer has informed state employees that those who are detailed to work from home won't return to their regular work locations until at least March 1st, 2021, due to COVID-19 pandemic. Whitmer made the announcement in a letter sent to state employees. Wow. I'm going to tell you what, and almost every teacher that I know hates being a teacher. They start counting the days down to the break. They start counting the days down in February as to how many days to the end of that second semester. And they can't wait to retire. I'll bet it's 1 in 100 teachers that love their job. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. But all of these teachers could have been a Michigan Corrections Department employee and worked even less. The science revolts. Social and health costs of lockdowns and school closures exceed the benefits. Top-tier epidemiologists warn of irreparable damage, with the underprivileged disproportionately harmed. I said it before. Who was the most vulnerable among us with all of these lockdowns and all these mandates and all of this economy-killing decisions? It's the people most vulnerable amongst us. It's not our old and our weak. Our elderly are old and are weak with underlying comorbidities. They're about to die anyway. You can't stop that. And we've prolonged that process. But now, instead of keeping people alive longer to suck as much money out of that system as possible, keeping them alive on machines many times, but we at least could go and see our loved ones. Even if they didn't recognize us or not, we could at least go and see them. Now they've even stopped that. But this is very interesting because it is in contradiction to so many of the quote-unquote science behind it all. We really need to be doing our own research. Michigan cities want to collect income tax from non-residents working at home. Opponents push back, citing closed and canceled facilities and services during the epidemic. And you see where both states, if you leave California, you leave New York, they're going to try to tax you for 10 years. The United States, if you leave the United States and denounce your citizenship and try to live abroad as an expatriate, they're going to try to collect income tax from you or tax you for the next 10 years. So a couple of the other things that I wanted to get to for that article I'm going to read. No lockdown on taxpayer-funded tourism spending, though. And the Pure Michigan, even though the governor tells you don't travel, stay home, stay safe, wear a mask, and they don't listen to it anyway. But then Pure Michigan's advertising campaign, which was going to be delayed, well, we better pick that up right now. And it goes into all the numbers. Michigan, national, worldwide COVID trends all look similar. And I have read 2 other emails today as well that talk about it doesn't matter if you wear a mask. The virus is going to do what the virus is going to do. It doesn't matter if you have lockdowns. Matter of fact, the mask wearing and the lockdowns seem to be a higher trend in COVID-19 cases, in the severity in which, and the death rates. So another great article, 30% of state workers flee their unions. This was a pretty good article, and you can look this up, but more than 9,000 in Michigan have canceled their memberships and dues payments. And on the back, and you can just see this, it's just a bill, and they do it in every one of these papers, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and typically you get 8 or 9 of these examples of bills that are being suggested. Half of them are from Republicans, half of them are from Democrats, to kind of give you an idea. All 8 of these are from Democrats, and I'm going to share with you. So, end going to the polls and do elections by mail only. That's introduced by Senator Jeff Irwin. He's a Democrat, to end the institution of going to polls and voting on election day and replace it with mail-in elections at all levels. And yet we know that all that does is promote and encourage fraudulent behavior. There's one here for let Medicaid pay for doulas. Authorize governor to appoint 4 official state poet laureates, create government commission on African, Caribbean, and diaspora affairs, give public service commission power to impose broadband price controls, and most teacher quality assessments. That's introduced by Representative Lori Stone, Democrat, to repeal the requirement that the individual performance of all public school teachers be assessed each year with the evidence of student growth, the predominant factor. Instead, teachers would only be assessed every 3 years, except that those categorized as needing support would receive annual assessments. This would replace current requirements. All teachers be rated each year and deemed as either highly effective, effective, minimally effective, or ineffective. Another potential bill is ban volunteer police officers and mandate employers to give time off to vote. And the article I wanted to read to you and finish up with this particular cast is, remember that promise about fixing the roads? Michigan is spending less on them under Whitmer. The COVID-19 pandemic has grabbed the spotlight from what has been a hot topic in Michigan, more funding for road repairs. In 2018, then candidate Gretchen Whitmer made Fix the Damn Roads the centerpiece of her campaign for governor. After the first 2 annual budgets she signed as governor, the state transportation spending is stagnant. In fact, Whitmer has found less for road repairs in each of her first 2 budgets than her predecessor, former Governor Rick Snyder, approved in his last budget. The last budget Snyder signed was for the 2018-2019 fiscal year, and it spent $3.64 billion on transportation. In the 2019-2020 fiscal year that followed, Whitmer approved just $3.59 billion in state transportation spending, and the budget she recently signed for the current 2021 fiscal year authorizes $3.6 billion, again a reduction, in spending. The figures refer to state spending from state resources only, not federal revenue, over which state lawmakers have no control. Without an influx of more federal dollars or a change in future budgets, Michigan would be spending far less on transportation in the Whitmer era. In 2018-2019, the federal government distributed $1.31 billion to Michigan for transportation. That increased to $1.7 billion in 2019-2020 and is projected to come in at $1.42 billion in 2021. Overall, the state of Michigan is projecting $5.11 billion in transportation spending over 2021, down from $5.34 billion the previous year. The Michigan Department of Transportation has plans to borrow, and this is where it really gets ugly. They plan to borrow $3.5 billion in new road repair debt that is not included in the state budget. However, that won't be cheap. It is estimated that taxpayers, that's you and me, will pay $565 million on just the first $800 million of the $3.5 billion. That's the end of that article, and I'm just going to close by saying this. That is stealing. Those decisions to basically on a credit card charge this, take our money and spend it unwisely, and you don't keep your promises, that's stealing. Capcom. You guys can get it yourself. I hope you do. I hope you pay attention to what's going on in the state of Michigan. Let's be part of a positive change. I'm James Detroit, and for now, I'm out.